Hello everyone, in this quick video I'm going to walk you through how to use pivot tables. In case you already know the pivot tables, you're good with these, please skip this video, you're good to start your assignment, right? So few things before we kind of start adding a pivot table. So it's always nice if your data is organized by columns. So what I mean by that, so which means you have all the attributes for the column headers, right, which is vertical, and all the transactions or the data we want to process is stored row-wise. This will make your life easier when you're analyzing data using pivot tables. So now there are a few different ways to insert pivot tables. You can click anywhere in the data set, right, and go to insert a pivot table. And once you do that, it will kind of select the table range automatically, right? So all the cells are selected up to row number 211, right? And we can insert a pivot table in a new worksheet, one way. The other way, we can insert a dynamic table. So that's what I like to do. So press and hold the control key and then press T. So you're pressing, holding control key, then press T. So control T will kind of come up with a new pop-up window saying create table. All of your data is already selected. So I'm going to press OK. So what will this will do? This will create a dynamic table. So which means in future, in case you're adding more data, that will be automatically added to this dynamic table. So as you did this particular part, then you will notice under the table design, we have a table name. So this table name by default is set to be table 1. It's always a good practice if you can give a meaningful name for the table or the data you're adding. So I'm going to call it automobile dealers AD data set. Right. And in Excel, it will not take the spaces as you give the name to the table. So try to keep it as one string, as one word. Let's just press OK. So the table we added, it is called a data set, right? So once you've done that, under table design, so under here, you will notice that there is an option to summarize with pivot tables. So let's click on that option. So summarize with pivot tables. So you can see here we have 80 data set. So the dynamic table we already added, and we can add it to a new worksheet. So let's do that. So once you do that, all the attributes will be listed here in this particular section. So this is what we call fields list. So all the column names, all the attributes are listed here. So when it comes to analysis, we will usually add the variables that we want to include in the analysis in columns and rows, and the associated numerical values will be added here so that we can produce some summaries, right? So let me show it all what I mean by that. So let's say we want to display the sum of all the financial estimates for each region. So we have financial estimates here. So let me just drag it to columns. So you can see this is kind of structured column wise. And for all the regions, your regions are listed in geography, right? So that's being added here. And we know that the values are listed in or the associated values for the financial estimates are in values field. So let's just drag that here. So in this case, I have a report or consolidated high-level view of the data set structured around 2 dimensions, which is Alberta, Canada, Manitoba, so which means geographical location as dimension number 1, right? And the second dimension alongside of financial estimates. So this is aggregated data for closing inventory in Alberta, aggregated data for closing inventory for entire Canada, and closing inventory for Manitoba, but across all the years, right? So because we have data, another dimension which is years, which is listed here. So I use the term aggregated. So how we are kind of aggregating these values. So if you come here in the values field, what you will notice, it is saying sum of values. So which simply means here, what we have done, we are adding the closing inventories for all the years for Alberta, closing inventories for all the years based on our data set for Canada, and so on, right? So if I want to change the aggregation, I don't want to look into some of the values. I can change it from here. There's when you go here in values, this little drop down, right? So we can click on that. We can go to value field settings. We can do count, we can do average, max, min, and so on, right? So there are a number of functions available that you can work with. Okay. So try to explore these as you require for your analytics assignment. Right? One more thing, what will happen, let's say if we change rows and columns here. It's just simply just data is now represented differently. It's just structured differently, right? So it usually depends on your reporting requirements or you want to display this information. Okay, so now let's do some filtering here. So let's say I don't want to display all of these financial measures. I only want to display closing inventory, opening inventory, and sales of goods for resale. So you can kind of, for the row labels, you can click on this little drop down here, and then you can choose what you want to display, right? Closing inventory, opening inventory, sales of goods for resale, right? So you can kind of structure your report accordingly based on the requirements, right? But in this case, I'm going to click select all at the same time. Similarly, you can filter by columns, which is column labels here. You can pick up, let's say I only want to display for Alberta and Manitoba. So now your data is sliced based on selected column labels. Right? So let's go back and select everything. So now you may say, okay, hang on, this is really good, I like it, but I only want to look into these KPIs for all regions, only for, let's say, 2015, for the year 2015. So for those additional filters, you can add the fields or the variables that we have listed here in the filters field, right? So let's do that. So I'm going to drag here in filters. So you will notice that there's another filter being added on top, right? And as we click, so by default, all of the years are selected. So let's drag it down. So sorry, click on the drop-down menu here. So by default, as all are selected, you will notice there is a checkbox, select multiple items. So you can enable multiple selections. And let's say I only want to display for 2015. So let's check 2015. So now we have data only for 2015. I want to display for 2015, or sorry, the aggregation based on 2015 and 2017. So now we have only those 2 years selected. So what I'm trying to make here is you can use filters in order to accommodate your needs if you want to look into a specific year or let's say some of the years within the given data set, right? You can add multiple filters, right? So anyway, we don't have any other things here to be added, but you can try that, right? Okay, so some of the other things you can do here is in the form of slicing and dicing and sorting, such as, let's say I want to sort the report based on the financial estimates, right? So as you can see at the moment, it's kind of going from A to Z. We can do the opposite way as well. So if you kind of click on this little drop down, you can sort from Z to A, right? Right, or you can do custom sorting. So please check these out. So let's say I want to have a label filter. So label means we're trying to apply filter on these labels. Right? So let's say I have a very long report and I want to select the certain entries which are beginning with opening, right? So if we do that, so we have opening inventory being selected, right? So it's kind of handy when you have long reports and so on. Similarly, you can apply value filter. So I want to have every entry selected where sum of values is greater than, let's say, 50,000. So now the table is filtered based on the values which are in these fields, right? So explore these, right? So that will be handy. Again, similarly, you can apply the same filters on geographical locations as well as on values as well. Okay. Right, let's see what else we have here. Okay, so another important note, sometimes you want your tables, let's say I don't want to show the grand totals, right, as part of my report. So you can always go into design on top and you can turn on and off from here, right? So let's say I want to get rid of grand totals. So off for rows and columns. So my report looks a bit more neat, right? Similarly, I can get rid of blank rows, a blank line after each item, right? So which is kind of more of a visual uh, representation or better representation of your data set. Similarly, you can look into the code layout. I think at the moment it's a compact form. I can switch to the tabular format, right? So it looks like a table. So let's get back again where we were. And so similarly, we can kind of one more thing here. So if you kind of right click, we already looked into summarize values by, right? So you can do average, maximum, and so on. You can also do show value sets, right? So in this particular case, it would make more sense if we can display values percentage of the total, right? Because if you look carefully, closing inventory is one of the measures, financial estimates, and we have closing inventories for Alberta, some of closing inventories, Canada and Manitoba. This is grand total. So it would be nice to see what percentage each of these regions are making for the closing inventories, right? So if we go and right click that and percentage of row total, right? So because Canada is the consolidated data about all territories and provinces, right? So you have a high value here. But otherwise, as we're comparing Alberta and Manitoba, Alberta has very high closing inventories compared to Manitoba, right? So depending on your reporting requirement, how data is structured, you can kind of switch to show values as, right? So by default, it's on no calculation. It's just displaying those as raw numbers, right? So we are given with closing inventory and opening inventory, right? So when we want to analyze data, so it would be nice to see the average inventories for each year across all regions, right? So for that, let's reset our data. So I'm going to select data for all years. Remember we early on only had selected for 2 years, right? So we have our data selected. So one way to do this is that you, let's say, move your year into the financial estimates. So we have closing inventories here, opening inventories for all three regions from 2012 to 2018. And then you take the values one by one, take the average inventories from closing and opening, and then create a chart, right? So very lengthy procedure. However, you can click on the financial estimates or the attribute you're working with. In this case, we're working financial estimates. And you can go on top. Here is the pivot table analyze, and we have calculated items. So let's go to calculated items. So you can see the financial estimates are already selected. So I'm going to create a new item here, average inventories. And we know that the formula for average inventory is opening inventory, so that's here. So let's select that, plus the closing inventory and divide by 2. So as we press OK, you will notice that the average inventories field is added, right? So let's copy it, let's take our values, and I'm going to insert this in a new sheet. So let's go down, and now we have the average inventories for from 2012 to 2018 for all three regions. And from here we can insert a line chart to do analysis, right? And we can change the axis. If I go and select data, just add it the x-axis in here, and here we go. So now we can start writing your report or telling the story what is happening here as we're comparing average inventories across all three regions, right? Okay, so I believe this kind of concludes what we're trying to achieve here from the pivot tables perspective. So play around with this, and if you need any further help, please